Welcome to Mental Survival, the channel where we talk about the psychological aspects of prepping and survivalism. My name is Cliff Hamrick, and this week I want to go a little deeper into our topic from last week on belief systems. One of the things that comes up when we start talking about our beliefs is how they impact us. And probably the most direct way that they impact us is they start directing us to have a lot of judgments about things. And we know that we're having judgments because we start using some of the following words. Should, should not, have to, don't have to, supposed to, and must. These sort of things. So let me give you a little example. Right now the AC is not working in my office. It's about 85 degrees, so if I'm a little sweaty, then that's what's going on. I don't have Ebola, it's just kind of stuffy in here. So immediately I start having a lot of these judgments. I start, it shouldn't be this hot. The AC guy was supposed to fix this a couple weeks ago. I shouldn't have to be in here and trying to shoot a video when it's so damn hot. And what's going to happen tomorrow when clients are supposed to come in? All these sort of things. Should, have to, supposed to. I'm not supposed to. I shouldn't have to. I got two of them in that case. Supposed to. He was supposed to fix it. This sort of thing. These are all judgments on my part. I believe, and the belief system, let's kind of break this down. The belief system that I'm operating off of is I'm supposed to be comfortable. That's actually a very common belief system that many Americans have today in modern life is I'm supposed to be comfortable. I have to be comfortable. Any of you who have ever done like a survival trip, or you've done some of these like primitive camping where you go hiking into the woods, or you do a survival trip where you just go in with like maybe a knife and a water bottle and you have to make your own shelter and find your own food and purify your own water. When you tell other people that, oftentimes they have this sort of weird sort of like, why, what's going on? They kind of are coming from this belief system that you're supposed to be comfortable. You're not supposed to be uncomfortable. You're not supposed to sleep on a bed of leaves. You're not supposed to have to go forage for your own food. You're not supposed to have to hike for miles just to get to a water source or whatever it is. And that belief system kind of permeates into a lot of folks, and even myself. I believe my first judgment was I shouldn't have to deal with this, because, and this is where us preppers and survivalists can kind of get caught off, is we're used to doing this out in the woods. We know that we're supposed to be uncomfortable on a survival trip. We know that we probably will be a little uncomfortable on a camping trip or something else like that. We understand that that's how it's supposed to work. But in my office, in my car, in all these at home, I'm not supposed to have to deal with any of this. This is not what I'm supposed to have to deal with. All of these language, all this supposed to, have to, must, should. All of this really kind of implies that there's a rule book on how your life is supposed to go. This is what your belief system starts to kind of generate, is this rule book on how the world is supposed to go. And we can tell that you're messing up because you're not doing what you're supposed to. We look on page 27 of your life, like there's a big rule book floating out in the universe. We look on page 27 and, oh look, you're screwing up because you're not doing what you're supposed to. It says right here on page 27, you're supposed to be doing this. The good news is there's no rule book. The bad news is there's no rule book. You have to live your life how you want. There is no supposed to. There is no must. There is no should. And there's only one have to, and you have to die. That's because our universe, as far as we know, everything dies, everything falls apart, and so that's the one thing that you have to do is die. Everything else is optional. And some people are like, oh, well, there's death and taxes. You have to pay taxes. You have to pay taxes. You can just not pay taxes. You might have to spend the rest of your life being on the run from the IRS. You may go to jail. You may have to flee the country to avoid paying taxes. But you don't have to pay taxes. You don't have to eat food. So my clients with eating disorders don't eat food. The consequence of that, though, is they're going to die. And that's the main thing, is that when we talk about shoulds and have-tos and musts and that sort of thing, we take the power out of our hands. We imply like the universe has power over us and it's going to force us to do these things. In reality, the universe doesn't make us do anything. The universe does have consequences. Like I said, if you don't eat, then you will die. That's pretty much a guaranteed. If you don't pay taxes, the government will come after you. That's pretty much a guaranteed. So these are all just the sort of natural consequences. You don't have to go to work. If you don't go to work, you'll probably get fired. You don't have to pay rent or your mortgage. But if you don't, you'll probably lose your housing. And it's a little subtle twist of the language, but it's kind of important. If rather than saying, I have to go to this damn job, if you say something like, well, I go to this job because it pays my bills and allows me to do the things that I want, that puts the power back in your hands. The power isn't with your job. Your power isn't with the universe or God or some other cosmic force that's forcing you to do this. The power is with you. You can choose to go to work, or you can choose not to go to work. You're making choices to go to work because you prefer the consequences of going to work than the consequences of not going to work. Consequences of not going to work is you lose your job, you probably don't have money, which will make it harder to pay rent, make it harder to do a lot of the other things you want to do in life. Whereas if you go to work, the consequences might be, well, maybe you have a bad day at work, or you have to work with some coworkers you don't like. But the other consequences are you get money, which allows you to keep a roof over your head and go do all the other things you like to do, and that sort of thing. You know, another one that's sort of a vague area is like going to school, going to college. I mean, you know, very, very few people can afford to or can get to go to college for free. Most people have to take out a student loan and they have to pay that back. That's also one of those consequences. And the hard part is we don't know which way it could go. Maybe you don't go to college, you don't run up a lot of debt, but maybe you do okay anyway. There are some people who can make it without going to college. Or you do go to college, you run up a lot of debt, and then maybe you still don't get a job. Or maybe not a job that pays as well, pays enough to pay for the college that you went to. We don't know what the consequence is going to be. And then we go back into which consequence are you willing to live with? Which consequence are you willing to risk for the most part? And like I said, it's a subtle but powerful tool to keep our belief systems in check. Because remember, all your beliefs are bullshit. You know, beliefs are bullshit. There is no belief that is 100% true 100% of the time in 100% of the situations. So inherently, every belief system is kind of bullshit. There's a lot of gray in there. But the way our brain works is it doesn't see gray when it comes to our beliefs. It sees black and white. It's supposed to be this way. It is not supposed to be this way. Period. There is no discussion to this. And so one of the things we have to do is we have to second guess our beliefs. We have to examine them. We have to take a step back. And we have to challenge them so we can kind of force our brain to start seeing that our beliefs are gray. And then that way we stop with the judgments, because the judgments are the first step into an emotional response. You know, just like with our example with the example of the AC, for instance. I came in, saw it was hot, knew that I needed to make my video today because it's the only really convenient time I could do it, and I got mad because I shouldn't have to do this. I'm not supposed to be sitting in a hot office trying to shoot this video. I have to do it today because it's Sunday and it's, you know, the only day that I have that I can shoot this. All that's bullshit. That's all my beliefs. But those beliefs lead to judgments, which lead me to get an emotional response, which in this case is anger. And anger doesn't solve the problem. You know, it doesn't do anything for me. It just makes me mad. So once I calm down, once I get the anger under control, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to be in here very long. I'll just shoot the video. I'll be a little sweaty. I'll use it for the video, which I did. And I'll move on. And that's that. I don't need to get angry. This is my prefrontal cortex. Remember from the mindfulness explanation, prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain that second guesses our emotions. And so when I get angry, I just have to kind of slow it down, take a breath, and let myself kind of talk myself through it, and then I'll start to be able to answer these beliefs. So one of the best ways to check your beliefs, to figure out what it is that you are believing, is to pay attention to When do you use those words? When do you use must, should, have to, supposed to? Anytime those words come up, at some level, you're talking about your belief system. Now, sometimes we use these words in like very sort of easy ways. They're not very triggering or anything else like that. This is sort of like oh wow, it's noon, I should go get lunch. Well, I just slipped in a should, But it's not a big deal. There's not a heavy judgment about it. It's just I need to eat. Again, we break it down. I need to eat. If I don't eat, then I die. Even if I don't starve myself to death, if I skip lunch, I'm going to be hungry for the rest of the day. I'm not going to be able to focus right. I'm not going to be able to do my job right. So all that said, I'm going to go eat lunch now, then put it off until later, or not eat at all. So that's a little harmless way to kind of break down how shoulds play out. So if you're using should, supposed to, have to, these sort of things, it's kind of a good way to sort of check yourself and ask yourself. Now I'm at the point to where when I'm working with one of my clients, when they start saying, should, supposed to, I should be farther along in my career than I already am. That should in the word just kind of goes off in my head like little fireworks, because that tells me at some level they're judging themselves, that their life is supposed to be at a certain level and it's not, and that's driving them to be angry or feel ashamed or whatever else, and all of that is going to get in the way of them actually doing what they want, which ironically may have nothing to do with their career, but at some level they've learned that they're supposed to be at a certain level in their career, and that's causing them a lot of stress in their lives, when in fact they may actually not even give a damn about their career. They actually want to do something else, but they've got this belief that their career is supposed to be at a certain level. Their career is the most important thing in their life. So by challenging these belief systems, sometimes we realize that we've really just inherited someone else's belief system, and we don't even want it. We don't even care about it. And I think a lot of folks in the prepper community and in the survivalist community, we've already figured that out. We don't really necessarily mix well with the rest of the modern life. We've already challenged certain beliefs that modern life has. One of those being like comfort. It's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to do things that are a little hard. It's okay to take the longer, harder route sometimes. Yes, you could spend your whole life going to the grocery store and buying all your food. So why would you grow a garden and learn canning and preserving foods like that when you could just go to the store and buy it yourself? Which, by the way, is also more economical. It is cheaper to just go to the store and buy your food than it is to grow it yourself. But those of us, in the prepper survivalism community, we know that we like that. We like that aspect. We like that independence that we get. So part of that is that makes us happy, but also we have challenged the belief that we know that there's a chance, even if it's for a short period of time, and even so, though it's maybe a small chance, that there won't be food in the grocery store. One day you go to the grocery store and the shelves are all empty. Maybe it's because there's a hurricane coming. Maybe it's because there's a huge accident on a major highway and the food trucks can't get to the grocery store. There's a lot of other reasons why that might happen, but we know that there's a chance that could happen. Whereas a lot of folks who don't really think like this, they just have that belief that there will always be food there. I will always be taken care of. That's one of the other beliefs we talked about. So what I'd like to suggest is that for an exercise for yourself is to kind of pay attention to your self-talk, or it might be even easier to do this with other people, is to pay attention to other people's self-talk. When they're saying should and supposed to and have to and must, to ask yourself, what is it that they're believing right now? If you get pretty good at that while listening to other people, then you can start paying attention to your own inner voice too. Like I said before, our belief systems are so hardwired in our brain, it's really hard for us to recognize them when we see them, because we just assume this is how things are. This is how things are supposed to be, right? That's what a belief system says. This is how the world is, or at least this is how the world is supposed to be. This is how it should be, that sort of thing. And so that's hardwired in us. So sometimes it's a little hard for us to see our own beliefs. It kind of creates a little blind spot. But it can be sometimes a good way to practice this, a good way to get good at this, is to pay attention to other people's beliefs. What are they saying? as a counselor, I'm constantly talking to people, listening to them, so I've gotten a lot of practice at it. So I can pretty much nail it after having a few conversations with someone, especially if they're in a highly emotional state. If they're very anxious, they're very afraid, if they're very angry, then they're going to be throwing out a lot of shoulds and stuff, probably because one of their belief systems has become triggered by what's going on around them, or at least just how they're thinking about things. And then all the shoulds and supposed tos and all this stuff starts coming out. And so it becomes very easy really fast to start examining what other people are saying to themselves. But anyway, I think that's about all I have for this week, and I will see y'all next week. Bye.